Hey, BATT Family. Welcome to the next entry in the 5 Games to series. 5 games to bring home for the holidays. We're all going to be either traveling somewhere or having people travel to us, and since we're gamers, we're naturally going to want to take advantage of the extra people around. But unless you're really liking everyone else plays hobby games, it means you're looking at playing Euchre, Monopoly, or Cards Against Humanity for the billionth time. So here are 5 recommendations for games to bring home for the holidays that you can get anybody to play. There were 3 main criteria for the games that we selected. 1, simple teaches with mechanisms that leave interesting choices. 2, games that lend themselves to be played over and over again in a short span of time and end up not feeling repetitive. And 3, that they are widely available and relatively inexpensive. I think the most expensive game on this list might be somewhere around $30. This isn't intended to be a bait and switch list to trick people into playing On Mars all of a sudden, just some great games to play with any age or experience levels. In fact, there were a few different variations of this list made, and I even recorded another version of it entirely. But when I was consulting with Natalie after I had done so, there were a few things that I wanted to switch around and adjust. If you're curious for some of the other recommendations we were looking at, go ahead and check out the episode notes to see them. With that in mind, feel free to reach out to us on either Blue Sky at boardallthetime.bsky.social or email us at boardallthetimegaming@gmail.com to give us your recommendations or talk about what we had in this episode. And with that, on we go. Our first entry on the list is The Oldest, a game from 1994 from Wolfgang Kramer and published by Amico Games. The game, Six Nimmt, or the English version of it, Take 5, is an excellent and cutthroat game for 2 to 10 players. The goal is to avoid taking 66 points over the course of what normally ends up being 3 or 4 rounds of play and have the lowest amount of taken points. There are 4 rows of cards, and if you end up placing the 6th card in a row, you end up taking the other 5 cards and you score them negatively. There are a couple variations on how to play, as it turns out, the rules as written in the box, and an alternate version that turns the 4 rows from being individual contests into being relative to each other. I ended up codifying some of those rules into what got called the Ascension variant. That can be found on Board Game Geek. It does appear that both of these rule sets are generally accepted by the community. There's a surprising amount of Mandela effect conversation going on because so many of us swear that we learned it the Ascension way. Regardless, there's also a new 30th anniversary edition available that, in addition to adding a few extra rules adjustments with some basically promo cards, it also adds in a full co-op mode, and I am incredibly intrigued to try that one out. Just be aware that this game can cause tempers to run very high, but it almost always turns into, fine, we're playing it again. The next entry is Medium, released in 2019 from Greater Than Games and designed by Daniel DeLay, Lindsay Sherwood, and Nathan Thornton. This is a party game that is best played with people you know well or that you think you can easily get into sync with. Medium plays for 2 to 8 players, but I've generally found it to be best with 3 to 6. On a player's turn, you'll pick a card from your hand that has a single word on it, and the partner for that turn is the player to your left, meaning that each player will actually have a pair of people they will be playing and scoring with, similar to Between Two Cities. That second player will choose a second word card from their hand, and as a pair, they have to simultaneously say the same word that links the 2 played word cards together. If you don't get on the first try, you have 2 more for a total of 3 tries, but you'll score more points with the fewer guesses it takes to actually get there. It is a lot of fun for those that want to try and get into the heads of the people they're playing with. There is a small box expansion called Second Sight available for it, but unless you're planning on absolutely wearing out the box in the first session, you don't really need it right away. It gives the game some extra longevity and some more word sets to deal with, but your mileage will vary on how much you need that. The promos available for the game really aren't needed because they're related to a mechanism in the game I didn't talk about, and honestly, it's one that you can very easily ignore, and that is special powers. But Second Sight does fit right into the main box should you want to do that, and you do pick it up. The next game on the list is from 2019 as well, but this time it was released by All Play from designer Chad Deshawn. On Tour is an infinitely scaling roll and write game that we played an enormous amount of during the pandemic over Zoom. Thematically, you're a concert tour promoter trying to schedule a concert tour across the country. On each round, you'll flip 3 cards that will tell you where on your map you are allowed to place the rolled numbers. The numbers themselves are rolled on 2 oversized D10, and you will use both versions of the number that was rolled. So for example, if you roll a 5 and an 8, you will have to write both a 58 and an 85 on your board somewhere. The game ends once everybody's map is full, and scoring is completed by drawing and connecting the longest line you can of what you wrote with the numbers, but they always have to either be directly matching the number before it or ascending. You're never allowed to have the numbers go back down. Basically, the way we talk about On Tour is that it's Shared Misery, the board game, and it is a riot every time. You will inevitably have one person say, I just need you to roll a 65. That's just what I need. And somebody else will sit there and yell out, no, I need anything but a 65. Please don't roll that. It is such a good time. There are a couple different versions of the game. There's the base US map, and I believe the European expansion is now included in the box. But if you find the older version of On Tour, that's the gigantic box, there is an expansion separate for that, as well as a standalone Paris and New York box. They all play largely identically. The map is going to be different. The way you are going to route your paths is slightly different. But I will say, I do like the US and European version better. I think I actually like the US map the best. But the maps are also available online on BGG should you want to get extra players in, because it is infinitely scaling. The next game is from 2022 and was released by 25th Century Games and designed by Nathan Thornton. Green Team Wins is an excellent party game where you are trying to read the room and be part of the majority's answer. The game is played over a number of rounds where you'll be asked one of 3 categories of question. This or that, basically pick one of 2 options. Best of 3, pick one of 3 options. Or fill in the blank. Pretty self-explanatory. If the answer you picked is picked by the majority of the group, then you join the green team and you score points because the green team wins, you see. If you aren't in the majority, then you end up on the orange team and you get no points. It leads this really interesting play where you end up going against what you feel would be your actual opinion sometimes, because you're just trying to read the vibe of the room and figure out what the opinions of everyone else would be. There's also a lot of fun discussion between questions and plenty of moments where you start yelling about how you were convinced that you would pick a different answer and I can't believe you went for the one that I would have preferred to choose. All kinds of stuff like that. It's really, really fun to dig into. There are promo packs available for the game that I frankly do not like, as most of those are focused on board games and board game related questions, so they're really unhelpful for the type of people that I would want to play with, which are non-gamers. There is also the Holiday Party expansion. That's great. It's themed for those end of the year holiday style questions. They have a fun like gingerbread house wreath decoration on the cards, but it's the same 3 types of questions. You are just having kind of that more themed answer. The game itself is 3 to 6 players within the box, but this one is also infinitely scaling. All you need is some paper and a way to track if you're on green or orange team. There are extra player packs available from 25th Century. In fact, I have enough for 18 players in my main box, plus the expansion. Finally, we've talked about our last entry a few times already on the pod, and a couple of them recently, but it bears talking about again here because of how good the game really is. We've actually already deployed this one to Natalie's family for the holidays to great response. Flip 7 was released by the op earlier this year from designer Eric Olson, and it can play a minimum of 3 players, but you'll mostly max out around 6 to 8 because of the amount of cards in the box. So if you want to play with multiple decks, essentially you are going to skew the ratios of the cards a little bit, but you will end up being able to play with more people. The deck of cards in Flip 7 has cards that are numbered 1 through 12 with an equal number of copies therein. So there's 1 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, etc., as well as a few special bonus cards and a single 0 card. The cards themselves are worth the number of points as the number itself, so a 6 card is going to be worth 6 points. So you'll want to try and get the higher numbers to earn those higher points. But if you ever end up with 2 cards of the same number, you bust and you score nothing. If you're able to flip over 7 unique cards without busting, then you end the round for everybody and you score an extra 15 bonus points on top of what the cards are worth. Otherwise, the round is going to end when everybody has either busted or they've passed and decided they aren't going to keep going. Well, I can't agree to it being the greatest card game of all time the way the box says. It really is a game that's been on the table quite a bit recently. It's a simple deck of cards, an easy teach, and it makes this one a real winner. So with that, we hope you enjoyed the list. These are all games that I will happily stand by and I think would be great assets to take home and play with anybody. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know what games that you would take home for the holidays, and we hope that you have a fantastic holiday season.